Sales techniques, best practices for closing. Closing is a process, not a moment. If closing still feels like something that happens in the last 5 minutes of a call, you're setting your team up for late-stage pressure, surprise objections, and preventable churn in your pipeline. In modern B2B, the close is the natural outcome of a buyer-centric process you run from the first touch to the signature. When we treat closing like a system, we stop relying on heroics and start building repeatable wins. That shift matters because most pipelines have more leakage than teams admit. With average B2B win rates around 21%, nearly 79% of opportunities still end up closed lost, meaning the default outcome is failure unless your process actively prevents it. Improving your closing motion isn't about being pushier, it's about reducing ambiguity and running cleaner deal execution. In this guide, we'll translate what's happening in 2025 buying behavior into practical moves your SDRs and AEs can use immediately. We'll cover how to set up the close in discovery, how to multi-thread through buying committees, how to follow up without sounding like a just checking in bot, and how to negotiate with discipline. Along the way, we'll also show how an SDR agency like SalesHive can strengthen the upstream inputs so closers start 2 steps ahead. Why closing got harder in 2025. First, deals take longer and require more coordinated interaction. Many B2B sales cycles average roughly 84 days with about 8 meaningful touchpoints, and SaaS customer journeys can be far denser than that. If your team expects one great demo plus a proposal to do the job, you'll lose to competitors who manage momentum across the entire cycle. Second, you're rarely selling to a decision maker anymore. You're selling to a decision system. Buying committees commonly span 8 to 13 stakeholders, and that creates real internal friction that shows up at the end of the deal if you don't address it early. Gartner's research is blunt. 74% of buyer teams experience unhealthy conflict during decisions, and teams that do reach consensus are 2.5 times more likely to report a high-quality deal. Third, buyers want fewer unnecessary seller interactions, but more clarity when risk is high. Gartner found 61% of B2B buyers prefer a rep-free experience overall, and 73% actively avoid suppliers that send irrelevant outreach. The implication is clear. Closers have to show up with tailored value at critical decision points, and your outbound sales agency or in-house SDR team needs to earn the right to a conversation through relevance. Set up the close in discovery, not at the end. One of the most expensive mistakes we see is treating closing as a separate final step. That mindset creates rushed end-of-quarter behavior, sudden urgency, sudden discounting, and sudden objection handling that should have happened weeks earlier. A healthier approach is to treat each stage as a small close: agreement on the problem, the impact, the decision criteria, the stakeholders, and the timeline, so the signature becomes a formality. This is where top performers separate themselves. Rain Group's research shows top sellers win around 72% of proposed deals versus 47% for others, and the gap is usually process discipline, better discovery, clearer value articulation, and stronger control of the buying journey. In practical terms, your discovery notes should capture business impact, success metrics, decision steps, stakeholder roles, budget reality, and timing, because those are the inputs that prevent late-stage chaos. We recommend standardizing this with a discovery template that lives in your CRM and is non-negotiable for any opportunity moving forward. If you're running a sales development agency function internally or via sales outsourcing, this is also where SDR handoff quality matters. If the meeting arrives without context on urgency, stakeholders, and decision dynamics, your AE starts behind. A clean SDR to AE handoff is one of the fastest ways to improve late-stage conversion without changing your product. Close the committee, multi-threading, and consensus design. Relying on a single champion is another common closing failure, and it's even riskier when committees are 8 to 13 people deep. One supporter can't represent finance, security, IT, operations, and executive priorities at the same time. And unseen influencers can kill the deal quietly during approvals. The fix is multi-threading. Build relationships and proof points across roles so the yes is durable. A practical way to do this is to co-create a stakeholder map with your champion by the second call. You're not interrogating, you're collaborating. Who signs? Who owns implementation? Who blocks risk? And who cares about ROI or compliance? Then you tailor enablement for each persona. Short ROI math for finance, security documentation for IT, workflow impact for ops, and a crisp outcome narrative for executives, so internal alignment becomes easier. Because 74% of buyer teams experience unhealthy conflict, the closer's job often looks like facilitation more than persuasion. We've seen teams win more consistently when they run structured alignment moments such as group Q&A sessions, implementation workshops, and executive-to-executive check-ins tied to a mutual action plan. When you reduce internal ambiguity, you reduce no decision, and that's the real close. The best closers don't push harder at the finish line. They remove uncertainty at every step, so saying yes becomes the simplest decision in the room. Follow-up that actually moves deals forward. Late-stage deals rarely die from one fatal objection. They die from lost momentum. In 2024, HockeyStack reported that the average B2B SaaS deal required about 2,879 impressions and 266 touchpoints to close, with roughly 99 touchpoints from sequel to closed-won alone. When you accept that reality, follow-up stops being an afterthought and becomes a core closing competency. The data also exposes a huge behavioral gap. Around 80% of sales require at least 5 follow-ups, yet roughly 44% of reps stop after one attempt. The fix isn't spamming buyers. It's using a structured, value-driven sequence where every touch adds something new: an answered risk, a clarified next step, a mini business case, or a decision enablement asset that helps the buyer socialize internally. A strong standard is to end every meaningful interaction with a calendar commitment and an agreed agenda. Then support it with a tight recap email that documents outcomes, success criteria, stakeholders, and next steps. For late-stage deals, we like a defined 10 to 14-day multi-channel cadence, email, phone, and LinkedIn outreach services that stays respectful and relevant. This is also where having an outsourced sales team or cold calling team can help. They can keep the top of funnel moving while AEs focus on value and consensus work that actually closes. Negotiation without early discounting. Unstructured discounting is one of the fastest ways to shrink margins while still failing to close. It trains buyers to delay, it weakens your value narrative, and it can even create internal conflict on the buyer side when stakeholders question why pricing suddenly changed. A disciplined closer holds the line on value first, then negotiates only when there's a clear exchange. The cleanest framework is give-get. Every concession is tied to a commitment like term length, volume, payment terms, or signature timing. That keeps you from buying the deal with discounts while still giving procurement a path to a win. It also keeps you aligned with buyers who prefer fewer rep interactions. When you do engage late stage, you're decisive, specific, and helpful, not reactive. When pricing pushback appears, Re-anchor the conversation in outcomes and cost of inaction before you adjust any numbers. If you surfaced quantified impact in discovery, the negotiation becomes a math conversation instead of a feelings conversation. This is where teams that run sales outsourcing or partner with a B2B sales agency often gain leverage. Better early discovery and tighter documentation give your closer the proof they need to defend value under pressure. Measure what improves close rates and coach to it. If you only track win rate, you'll miss the levers that actually improve it. With an average win rate around 21%, small operational improvements, like fewer stalled proposals or cleaner stakeholder alignment, can create meaningful revenue lift without adding headcount. The goal is to measure the behaviors that predict closed won, not just the outcomes. 2 coaching habits consistently raise late-stage performance. Weekly deal clinics focused on at-risk opportunities and lightweight win-loss reviews that produce specific behavior changes. When a deal is lost, you should be able to answer, did we multi-thread early enough? Did we define success metrics? Did we confirm the decision process? And did we maintain momentum with concrete next steps? If you can't answer those questions, the fix is process, not motivation. When these metrics improve together, your win rate follows, often quickly, because you've reduced friction in the exact part of the funnel where opportunities are most expensive. This is also how you prevent deals from dying quietly. You force clarity, document reality, and coach the team on repeatable closing behaviors. Where SalesHive fits: better pipeline in, more revenue out. Closing more deals starts before your AE ever sends a proposal. If closers are working shaky opportunities with unclear pain, no urgency, and missing stakeholders, even great techniques won't save the number. That's why we built SalesHive as a sales development agency focused on feeding closers with well-researched, ICP-fit meetings, so your closing process begins with real leverage. As a US-based cold calling agency and cold email agency, we support teams that want predictable pipeline without building everything in-house. Our cold calling services combine experienced SDR talent with an AI-powered platform, list-building services, and personalization, including our eMod engine, to create conversations that hold up under late-stage scrutiny. Whether you're evaluating sales outsourcing, trying to hire SDRs, or expanding an outsourced sales team, the goal is the same: higher quality inputs that make multi-threading, consensus, and follow-up easier for your AEs. If you're pressure testing partners, we recommend assessing any SDR agency or outbound sales agency on 2 things: the quality of discovery context delivered in the handoff and the consistency of process adherence across reps. You can learn more about how we work at saleshive.com. And if you're comparing options, it's reasonable to review SalesHive pricing, SalesHive reviews, and even SalesHive careers to understand how we staff and operate. The best next step is to tighten your internal closing playbook while ensuring your top-of-funnel engine, whether internal or outsourced, delivers opportunities your team can actually win.